But we got to get into a conversation that was had from one Micah Parsons. After the loss of this game, reporters came in there, and one of the reporters asked Micah about the job security of Michael from Pittsburgh, the head coach, Mike McCarthy. And I'm going to read what Micah's response was to the question, and I want to make sure that I get it right. The reporter asked Micah, "What do you tell people who are wondering if Mike McCarthy will be your coach next year?" Now, before I say what Micah said, I do want to say that as someone who works in the media, as someone who's been in the locker room, as a media person, we want players to talk. We don't want the company answer. We don't want the chat GPT answer. We don't want any of that. We want the real answer. And so I think sometimes Micah tries to give you the real, and he tries to give you these super articulate and strong answers because he's someone who works in the media as well. But sometimes I think that Micah may say too much. So the reporter asked Micah, "What do you tell people who are wondering if Mike McCarthy will be your coach next season?" Micah responds with, "That's above my pay grade if Mike is coaching next year." That's a good place to put a sentence and leave it. Like, that's a good place. And for Micah to be in his 4th year in this league, you have to understand, like, being around the media, you work in the media, you're a president of Bleacher Report in the section of that you podcast in. Saying that's above my pay grade if Mike is coaching next year, period. That's where you could have stopped right there. That's above my pay grade. But you didn't. You kept going on. He said Mike can leave and go wherever he wants, meaning he can leave and go and coach wherever he wants. I am full agreement with you. Because Mike can. Mike can go and coach wherever he wants. Whether they give him a job next year or not, he has the freedom to go and to coach at any level, at any position that he wants to. But Micah doesn't stop there. Because he could have put a period right there. Then Micah said, "The guys I kind of feel bad for are the vets like Zach Martin, who might be in their last year or close to it. That's who I want to hold the trophy for. You want to win games and do big things with legends like that." I 1,000% agree with Micah. I do. As a player, yeah, you'll run through a wall for certain coaches. But I play for my guys. I play for myself first and my family, but then the guys who I'm in the foxhole with. Shout out to all the veterans out there. Happy Veterans Day. But I pray for I play for the man to my left and to my right. I pray for the guys that are putting on out here on the field. And Micah could have put an exclamation point, period, right there. But he didn't. And he kept going. And he said, "You want to win for guys and do big thing with legends like that. Guys who put in more time and work. Guys who put in more time than work than Mike McCarthy ever did." That's where we part ways. That's where we part ways. Because now, to me, it feels and seems like you are throwing shade, taking shots, throwing your head coach under the bus. And it's always context matters, what you mean versus what you said. I listened to the audio interview of it, but I could not help but think, you didn't speak this way about Dan Quinn. You said you're willing to go with Dan Quinn anywhere. You might go with him wherever he goes. You spoke high praise of Dan Quinn. Now, I'm fine with you saying that's above my pay grade. Mike can come and go as he please. I get it. I'm with you 1,000%. You are absolutely right. But when you start talking about whether someone works hard or more than someone else, that to me is when they took a personal shot. Now, I'm not in the building every day, all day like you are, and those are on the team. But there's just certain things that you shouldn't say. To quote my good friend Newey Scruggs, you didn't need to bring a log to the fire. It is already burning and hot in the locker room in the facility of the Dallas Cowboys. You didn't need to bring a kerosene, excuse me. You didn't need to bring a kerosene-soaked log to the fire and just toss it in there. Because however you want to play it, you have to deal with the media. It is what's going to be looked at and how it's analyzed. Because I start thinking about, I remember when Mike McCarthy was on his way out of Green Bay, people talking about how hard he didn't work. I thought it was a personal shot towards the end. I thought the first half of that statement was so true, and I agree with it 100%. And then the other thing that bothered me is this. And I want to make sure I get this right as well. So after Micah says that last night and the quotes begin to go, of course, and all the A blocks on all of the national shows, the Cowboys are in there. And when it rains, it pours. When you lose real bad. And so they picked it up. And it was on Get Up. And Rex Ryan had things to say. And Damian Woody had things to say. And Harry Douglas. And you name it, guys all across the networks had things to say. And then the rabbit ears took place again. And Micah made a big comment at Harry Douglas. He then made a big post at Get Up telling them to be better. But then here's the part that gets me. At 9:15 a.m. today, or when you see this, yesterday, Micah tweets at 9:15 a.m. I will address this today! ! Then he added BR Gridiron at Bleacher Report. Time for the truth and the real facts. Tune in to The Edge today. The Edge is his podcast that he has on Bleacher Report. At 9:15 a.m. Now, I host shows at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility at the Star. I eat in the lunchroom. In the lunchroom, they have up these big TV boards and it has a schedule on it. And it had all of today's schedule on it. And I just could not help myself. And y'all guys can say that I'm exaggerating or whatever. But I couldn't help myself that when I read this at 9:15 this morning, and then I happened to look up at the practice schedule that they have on the TV screen, I thought to myself, here's my problem. For me, the problem for me is this is now in your mind for the rest of the day. I'm sorry. I know when I have something that I'm like, man, I can't wait to get to the pod. I can't wait to get to the pod because I'm going to say, boop, 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 boop. I've had those days. I've had those days where I was just steaming inside to get these takes off. And then sometimes you want to tweet through it, but I'm like, nah, they got to hear me say this. I'm gonna tell them what. It's been on your mind all day long. So when you should be solely focused on how to get your team prepared to beat the Houston Texans or breaking down the film from yesterday's game or doing whatever you got to do to get this team right at 9:15 in the morning, you worried about a podcast later on tonight. So subconsciously all throughout the day, because I know that there's TVs on and you're on social media and you're reading it and your people are commenting to you, so you're not getting away from it. You're seeing it in the TVs in the training room, TVs in the locker room, TVs walking down the hall, TVs in the food court. You see it, TVs in the weight room. So it's constantly playing. You have your phone in your hand, so you're constantly looking at it on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, and all these other places. So in your mind, there's no way that you fully committed to going to get solutions on how to fix the problem that you have on this football team. Your focus is now on get into your podcast so that you can bark back at the national media. Nah, I don't care who and what has a podcast. But you also have the right to remain silent if you so choose to. It's these things that I sometimes think about, and maybe it's the old man get off my lawn aspect that I have, but thinking about getting on the podcast to speak your truth, to talk your talk, to walk your walk. When I should be locked in 100% on trying to get this guy, because you told me that you wanted to do right for guys like Zach Martin. You wanted to see those guys. But at 9:15 in the morning, you as the country folks say, you tongue wrestling. You tweet wrestling with national media. And you focused on getting to the crib to get on your podcast to say what you got to say. When I just read the stats off, in the last 5 home games, you've trailed in every fourth quarter. In the last 2 home games, you've had 10 takeaways and 0 turnovers. 10 turnovers and 0 touchdowns. In the last 4 home games, you've been outscored 153 to 59. In the last 3 home games, the losses by 25 points or more has tied for the most in franchise history. But I got to speak my piece on my podcast. Again, I don't have a problem with the podcast. I get it. It's today's world. I'm telling you this from a podcast. But I don't have a football game to play. I guess you live and you learn, and there's lessons that have to be made, that have to be learned over time, and it's another one lesson that Micah will learn. But at 9:15 in the morning, that you shouldn't be, after a loss, after an embarrassing loss, after a 34-6 loss, you shouldn't be tongue wrestling with folks on social media. You're playing for the worst defense in the National Football League. I don't know if everyone cares about you speaking your truth about a comment about you made in a postgame. That's just me.